Still have your picture in the frame. Ooh. Welcome to Agents of Screen and welcome back to yet another Insecure recap, season 4, episode 4, almost halfway through the season already. I know, I am your boy Miles, and before we get any further, please like, share and subscribe, but let's get straight into it. Timeline wise, it's 1 month before the block party. Molly's at home, she's engulfed in her work. Andrew comes to see her. She loses track of time and doesn't realize that it's time for Andrew to come over. Andrew's already at the door, so she opens it for him and she starts talking about work and stuff like that. And within 5 seconds, fam, 5, like Kobe Bryant, 5, rest in peace. Within 5 seconds, he starts snoring. Now that's a red flag. You shouldn't be doing that. If it's someone you care about, like 5 seconds? I know Molly is obsessed with her work, but he's taking a piss. That's a red flag straight away. But she obliges. She stops talking about work. She's initiating sex. She's taking off clothes. She's trying to initiate some of that crouching Andrew, hidden schlongy. But not only does she do that, but she takes him to the bedroom as well, and she literally stops mid foreplay. That is a red flag. Like, you're obviously entitled to stop whenever you want, but you're taking a piss if you initiate, take man to the bedroom and then you stop midway. Like, don't charm the snake if you're just gonna put it back into the basket, man. You have to charm it all the way. He can tell something is off. And she says to him, I have a lot of work to do, you know, let me finish it first and then I'll come back. So she leaves him in the bedroom like she's babysitting him and goes and finishes her work. She loses track of time again. By the time she's finished, it's minutes to 2 in the morning. She woke him up. I thought he was gonna say like, oh, just get off me, man. Like, let me sleep. But you know, he wakes up and in the words of Mavadi, gives us a in Steve. Meanwhile, as I said, it's 1 month away from the block party. Issa tries to call Condola because she's getting chased up about the flyers for the event, which is supposed to feature the main act is supposed to be Schoolboy Q. She's trying to get in contact with her. She can't. It's going straight to voicemail. She sends her a text saying, listen, I just called you. Back to Molly. She's at work. She has to stay late for a case, so she volunteers. She doesn't have to. Let me correct myself. She doesn't have to stay late, but she chooses to and blows off Andrew again because of work. This is a recurring theme. One thing about Molly, I don't know if you guys remember from the previous season, she was going to therapy, which I think is a lot of people would benefit. Therapy has the stigma of, especially like in the black community, therapy has the stigma of like, if you go to therapy, you must be crazy. But mental health is something that you have to continue and you have to take care of yourself. So physical health is something you go to the gym every week if you can. Mental health is not something that you do and then stop. It's something that you have to, self-care is something that you have to continue over a period of time. So that's something that I feel like she's neglected. We don't know if she stopped going on her bias. I'm going to assume that she has, and therefore she's never really confronted you. If you guys remember in the scenes with the therapist, she never really opened up to the things that were cutting her deeply. And if you remember, Tiffany has recently had a baby, so you know all the friends are coming to the house. So it coincides that Issa and Molly are trying to park in front of her house at the same time. You know, there's like an awkward standoff. Okay, you go, I go. Okay, you go. And then they both try to go and it's awkward. Eventually, Issa lets Molly go into the space. But Issa does have the right of way in the situation. She had the parking space first. Because when you park your car, you never park it like front first. And as you saw when Issa decided to go around the corner, Molly ended up going forward first and then reversing into the corner. So she shouldn't have done that. That's quite trash again. As I said in the last video, this is like the trash Olympics. They're trying to outdo each other. So, but that was quite petty of her to do. Like, just let her have the space, bro. Like, so as Issa parks around the corner, she gets a notification. When she checks it, it's from Nathan, aka Nansford. What kind of name is Nansford, fam? But Nansford leaves a voicemail on her phone, and Nansford is on that light-skinned Brian McKnight shit. Do I ever cross your mind anytime? I mean, he didn't say that verbatim, but he was saying that explicitly. No, you don't have to call if you don't want to. You don't have to return this call. It was positive, but if you check the undertones, he was definitely on his light-skinned Brian McKnight anytime shit. Still have your picture in the frame. Ooh. Hear your footsteps down the hall. You know that shit, yeah. One thing I want to say about Nathan, aka Nansford, I don't get this, why people like him so much, because They only went out maybe once or twice. You don't really know anything about him. You don't know what his job is. You don't know if he was an ex-criminal, hence why he ran when they found out that he got in that fight in the Uber. But yeah, we'll see. But we get to inside of Tiffany's house and realize I'm not calling her Trashifany for this episode because, you know, I have some respect for how she handles certain things in this episode. And this venue of her house proves to be a very poignant location in terms of the conversations people are having. And this is where I think Insecure shines, when they shine the light on certain real issues that people suffer with. For example, Lawrence and Derek are having a conversation. As I said, Derek is Tiffany's husband. They recently had a baby girl, and they're talking about fatherhood and that it wasn't planned and having to put your own personal plans on hold in order to look out for the best of the child. And Lawrence asks him what it's like having a daughter. What is it like having a girl? And he said it just puts so much in perspective, like how they've done so much wrong to women in the past, and you don't really think about, which is quite sad, you don't really think about until you have a daughter of your own, that all the women that you've ever dated is someone's daughter. It sounds simple enough, but people lose sight of that all the time. And going back to what I said, Derek has said to Lawrence that having a baby now wasn't planned. You know, they plan to go traveling and do it in 2 years time and enjoy their marriage, etc. But he says to him, you know, for things that you do love, you just make that shit work. And you can see in Lawrence's mind, he's doing the calculations, and in his mind he's thinking, yeah, I want to make it work with Issa. In a different room in the house, and this is why I'm not calling Tiffany Trashifany in this episode, the women are having a conversation and they're talking about how she's been dealing with the pregnancy, and she throws a few comments here and there, and she's talking about how black women are treated in the hospital and how they're not believed in terms of what the pain that they go through. But just as important, you can see there's some sprinkling of like postnatal depression. I think they will probably get into it more deeply in the next episode, but I appreciated that they highlighted it, because that is something that is not very highlighted, but is more common than people think, and it's a big issue, and it's something that, and I'm grateful that it's highlighted upon to show people and show women specifically that it's not an uncommon thing, and therefore there's nothing to be ashamed about. It's something that's beyond their control, and it's something that, you know, it's a process to work through. Raw, this is getting kind of deep in it, but anyways, Molly and Issa, there you can tell the tension is in the room. They're throwing petty comments back and forth. You can see it's just steadily building up. But Molly, she has this delusion in her head when she's talking about Andrew, how, oh, Bae's so flexible, he just makes it work, like he doesn't mind, he understands with work and da-da-da-da. But she doesn't realize, like, Andrew can't stand that shit. And I don't know if she's doing that to present a front for the others, but it's just, she's not painting an accurate picture at all. And in that same moment, he texts her and says, oh, we still on for that movie date later? And she blows him off for the third time in like 3 days. Another red flag from Molly. He ain't gonna put up with that shit much longer. But the girls separate somewhat into different rooms of the house. Kelly's with Issa, Molly's with Tiffany. They're talking about things. Lawrence pulls Issa outside so they can have a talk. Tiffany and Molly are having a conversation, and Molly tells Tiffany what's happening between her and Issa. And Tiffany, she gives us some legit advice and saying this is a communication issue, and it's most likely that Issa feels exactly the same way. So you guys just need to talk. I'm still trying to figure out if they actually want to be friends, because they're pretending like they have no time for each other. But as we will see later in the episode, when certain people need certain things, it's the motion, as Drake said, they'll make time. And despite what you may think, I have no horse in this race. I don't prefer Issa or Molly. They're both trash friends to each other. For what reason exactly, we don't know quite yet. But as I said, Issa and Lawrence are outside having a talk. What they're having a talk about, no one knows. But Molly immediately assumes the worst and thinks that Issa is trying to go back into a toxic situation, and she's already judging her. She's already made up her mind in her head. And that's a pet peeve for me in terms of assuming. Don't assume when it would take absolutely less energy just to ask. If you think something, just ask me and I'll tell you the truth. And I think it's especially rich coming from Molly, seeing that in last season she was seeing a married man and she wasn't being judged by her friends for doing so. So I don't get why she's so quick and eager to judge Issa for just having a conversation when Issa is a single woman. It doesn't make any sense. Logically, it does. Make it make sense, please. But meanwhile, outside, Lawrence wants to tell Issa something. We know it has something to do with Condola, but before he has a chance to do so, Issa gets a call that's block party related, so she has to take it. come to find out that the headliner, Schoolboy Q, has pulled out. We don't get to find out why. It's kind of coincidental with the whole Condola going ghost and Schoolboy Q dropping out as well. We don't know if the two are connected. I know people really don't like Condola, and it's quite funny, like people refuse to call her by her actual name. They call her Condolences, they call her Condoleezza Rice, they call her Condoma, all sorts. But I have no reason to dislike Condola. But Lawrence says, okay, we will have this conversation later. So what do you guys think is the conversation that Lawrence wants to have with Issa? Is he gonna say that him and Condola are taking a break, or they've broken up? Is he gonna tell her, I want to get back with you? What's he gonna say to her? I personally don't want to see them back together. I think that they had to split up in order to grow. I think it would be good for a time, but I think it will always ultimately end in disaster. That's my personal opinion. Issa, as I said, she's trying to get a replacement headline act for her block party. You know, she's scrambling around. You see, she's gonna try and DM Beyonce. Even as unrealistic as it is, she still should have sent it. Like, shoot your shot. Shoot, hashtag shoot a shoot. But ultimately, she's looking for local LA acts. So she's going for like DJ Mustard, and she comes across someone, S.C.R.E.E.N. His at is Inglewood S.C.R.E.E.N. I don't know if you know S.C.R.E.E.N. S.C.R.E.E.N is sick. Chasing Summer's sick album, John Rencorn, big tune, and she can see that he's managed by Live Nation, who Andrew works for. She's starting to connect the dots. Meanwhile, Molly and Andrew are out on a date. Finally, after she's blown him off 3 times, she's looking good in her dress. They're out having a nice time, and she's outlaying how the evening's gonna go. We're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do that, and then eventually you're gonna come back to mine, and you know we're gonna do what we do. But he's saying, hold on, I actually have plans with my friends. I didn't know that anything was happening after. And she, you know, in classic Molly fashion, she's doing the most. She's upset. Like, how much of a hypocrite is this? Let me not say bitch, I actually did say it, but how much of a hypocrite are you? You've blown man off 3 times for work purposes, even when you didn't have to. It wasn't no deadline that you had to meet. You done it by your own choice. And the minute he has another plan, even though he still managed to fit you in, it's a problem. So it's kind of harking back to the things Issa is saying, like, oh, you're always finding a problem in something. After that point, it's a bit awkward. He offers to cancel his evening plans, but she refuses. I thought she was going to do one of those things that women do where they say, oh no, don't cancel your plans. But then if you don't cancel it, they're going to judge you for it. But that didn't happen. The next day, Issa calls Molly, and she's trying to ask a favor if she could ask Andrew for her, because her headliner has dropped out, try and get this act to come and perform at her block party. Now, Issa, as I said earlier, she didn't have time to go on to the Thanksgiving. She didn't have time for whatever previous thing that they were supposed to meet up for to talk, and didn't. Blew her off for the pie. She made a pie especially for her. Didn't even show up. Cancelled at the last minute. All of a sudden she's got time now. Oh, that's funny, isn't it? She doesn't even ask Molly, how is your day? How are you? You know, even if you don't mean it, it's manners, it's courteous to inquire about the person before you start asking for favors. But she asks for the favor, and you can see in Molly's face she's over it like Summer Walker. You can see she doesn't really want to ask, but she says, you know, okay, I'll ask him. Molly goes to Andrew's house to apologize for the previous night on how she handled the situation. She kind of confides in him and says, I've never been in a relationship long enough to go past the honeymoon period where you have to start balancing work and your partner, so this is all new for me, and he understands that. So they agree to work through it, and be that as she's trying to fix potential problems with Andrew, she decides not to ask him the favor for Issa. And Issa's calling her because she knows how many times, as someone else pointed out to me in the comments for the previous video, shout out to you, but how many times Molly has bailed out Issa in the past. And I think it's got to the point where she takes it for granted. She even expects it. Like when she drove back from wherever they were at 3 a.m. from when she took her to Nathan's house to snoop around to see if he was still around when he ghosted, and a bunch of other occasions. And Molly says she's not gonna ask him because, as I previously said, because she's trying to fix things, she's not trying to push it to the limit. She doesn't want to seem like she's using him. But what do you guys think? Do you think as a friend she should try and help her out? And I think she's in a position where she's starting to think that this friendship, she's choosing her relationship over her friendship. But I think it's sad. I don't think necessarily you have to sacrifice bits, but I don't think you have to cut one off to allow the other to grow. Maybe if it becomes too toxic, but it shows you how far the relationship has deteriorated. Molly communicates successfully with Andrew about her problems and how to fix it, but with Issa, for whatever reason, they are unable and she's unable to communicate for them to fix it. And as I said, even though friends are supposed to be there for each other, I think Issa has definitely taken Molly for granted, and I think Molly is tired of that, especially as I feel Molly was jealous of Issa and Condola's budding friendship. So now that Condola is out of the picture, oh, now you want to come back and be pally. So I think all of these things are happening. So, but how did you guys feel about this episode? Do you guys want Nansford to come back? Do you guys want Nathan to come back? You know, Nathan is in the music industry. She might have to call him and get him to bail her out again. Have you guys picked a side between Issa and Molly? Me, they're both trash, but right now Issa is definitely in the lead in the trash Olympics. Do you guys want Issa and Lawrence to get back together? Issa don't even have a job. She needs to focus on herself about next, man. She needs to focus on herself, and that's real talk. But the episode ends with Issa kind of licking her wounds. You know, they had the NWA shirt. Good reference as Insecure do, and she's thinking, how am I going to fix this situation? Who is going to be the headline act? We're going to have to find out in the next episode. But that has been my recap. As I said, I have been your boy Miles. We have been the Agents of S.C.R.E.E.N, and until the next video, which is coming extremely soon, peace.